All right, good morning, everybody. I sometimes am puzzled whether, speaking in a morning session is better or an afternoon session is better. Because in our industry, this becomes graveyard, right? After lunch, that becomes graveyard too. So, it becomes a little bit of a challenge either ways. But I'm glad to be here and, thanks for the opportunity, the organizers for having me here. One of the things that I was thinking about a little earlier, in the week, when a train comes and stops at a particular place, it's called a train station. When a bus stops at a particular place, it's called a bus station. Where I sit, they call it a workstation. And that's where work stops, I guess. And that's why I was able to put something together out here. So I think it's a very interesting journey in terms of artificial intelligence, and a lot of people talk about artificial intelligence. There is a lot of intelligence around artificial intelligence. Now, we need to figure out as to, what really makes sense and what doesn't. And, we'll just spend a couple of minutes going through it. I don't want to really bore you with, too much of information, but I'll try and keep it light. I'll try and keep it high level, and then, we can take it from there. So a couple of statistics that I have out here. So one is 72% of business leaders believe artificial intelligence is a business advantage. 61%, regardless of company size, points to machine learning and AI as their company's most significant data initiative for next year. By 2025, 57% of business buyers will depend on companies to know what they need before they ask for anything. Customer satisfaction is expected to grow by 25% by the end of 23 in an organization that uses AI. And 38% of employees expect their job to be automated by 2023. 13% expect AI to eliminate positions entirely in their industry. Now, this is where it gets very interesting, and Mukesh covered it a little bit. A lot of people expect AI to take over jobs. A lot of people expect AI to, make a big difference in terms of, what the future is going to look like. And I think there is a possibility or a tendency for people to hesitate or refrain from, investing into artificial intelligence, investing into automation, etc. Right? And I just want to kind of take your attention to a couple of, some statistics around it and some actual information around it. Every century, right, there was some sort of a revolution. For example, you had the agricultural revolution at some point, where people thought once they started using tractors and stuff like that, the number of jobs is going to reduce. But what happened? The produce went up, the yield went up, and it created other jobs, because then you had more people that needed to do sorting, more people that needed to do packaging, etc., etc. The same thing happened with the Industrial Revolution. Right? People thought with machines coming in, you don't need people, but instead, a lot of the jobs got created in the meanwhile, and people obviously started getting engaged. One of the biggest protests in the history of mankind was the protests that were conducted by candle makers. When electricity was invented, candle makers started protesting, saying that, we are not going to have jobs. Today, do we have any candle makers around? I don't think so. I mean, you have somebody that, makes candles as a hobby, and, there's some elements of it because you've got scented candles, etc. But, that's not main industry. The same thing happens even with artificial intelligence. I mean, if you look at it, automation happened with your Excel sheet. Before, everybody would start computing numbers and calculating and running 100 things. But today, you open up an Excel sheet, you put in a formula, and it just makes it so easy. Has it really impacted anything? No, it hasn't, right? There is a study which says artificial intelligence, automation, is going to reduce jobs, 1.8 million jobs. However, it's going to create an additional 2.3 million jobs. The key thing to remember here is, with automation and artificial intelligence coming in, if you stagnate, if you don't upgrade yourself, chances are you're going to be left behind. If you upgrade yourself, if you move forward, there is going to be significant amount of opportunities. And Mukesh was talking about it. The expectation in terms of industry has changed so much. Gone are the days when people expected you to meet your KPIs. Gone are the days when people expected you to make sure that your service levels are in order. Today, they expect you to give them intelligence. They expect you to give them feedback. They want you to tell them, what can we do as a differentiator where industry is concerned. And all of that doesn't happen until and unless you invest in some element of automation. So I've just got a couple of slides. I'm not just going to go through too much of it. I'm going to keep it really, really high level. And in case you want to talk to me a little later, we can do that. But I'm going to keep it really high level. So a couple of things that we've done, which I think make sense and has kind of made it easy for us. One is, if you look at it in terms of, the actual art of possibilities. So this is the way the whole thing is structured. So you've got, chat, social, the different interaction channels. And today what's happened is you've got a lot of companies that are not just doing complete a human intervention, but they've also got a hybrid model. For example, if you go to the, food tech apps, in case you have, a query, you've got a robot that talks to you initially, and then in case it's not able to resolve, then it moves into, a human, talking to you. So what happens? It just improves the experience, number one. Number two, your wait time is reduced because people don't have the time to wait anymore. Right? It is very fast-paced, whether we like it or not. And people like quick interactions. And that's a great alternative because it helps the cause to a large extent. So some of these things, we see a 20-25% reduction in cost of operations because obviously you don't need to put so many heads out there. Number two, the customer contacts also improve significantly because, especially the smaller ones, human error is taken off and, you get some sort of a resolution. Customer experience is improved, and then obviously the complaints reduce as well. So this obviously helps with the experience at a first level when a customer is trying to get in touch with us. Now, one of the things that we focus on, especially in the current day and age, is with respect to how can you improve your learning curve, right? Because the pace at which businesses are operating is significant, right? There's so much of seasonality. People don't want to keep additional headcount anymore. If they've got 100, the minute there's a seasonality shift and it drops down by 20%, they want to reduce the 20%. Nobody cares to keep that 100 anymore. So the point is, you've got to be flexible. And how do you get flexible? Improving learning curve. And these are some of the things that we do because there are two things that happen. One is, we need to be flexible where our clients are concerned. Number two, the people that we're training is a very different generation. I mean, you want to call them Gen Z or you want to call them Gen A or you want to call them Gen B. They don't have the attention spans to sit in a classroom and actually absorb. Right? They're very quick-paced. Their fingers are very itchy because they're so used to gaming. So we've got to, adapt ourselves to be able to cater to them. And that's when we come up with, gamification and, micro content and simulators and, that kind of a thing. Because when you put these things together, they seem to relate better. They seem to connect better. And we start to see better learning curves. And then what happens is, tomorrow if there's an update, today it takes somebody maybe an hour and a half to come to the workplace. If I've got something like micro content, sent out of their phones or maybe an app or something of that sort, he looks at it before he comes into work. Makes it so much easier, right? So this is what we do, which I think obviously helps to a large extent. And then, of course, performance management and, making sure that, we keep people engaged. If you don't keep people engaged, there's a good chance you're going to lose them. Because there's been a study, and I think it's run by, one of the very, very famous institutes. I forget the name. But the study indicates that people don't necessarily leave a job because of money. Now, there is a certain section that does, right? But there is no correlation between attrition and incentive. And, we've seen it over and over and over again. The reason why people leave is because they're not challenged enough. The reason why people leave is because they're not engaged enough. You know why that is? Because as humans, we want to feel valued. As humans, we want to feel self-worth. If we don't feel self-worth, all the money in the world is not going to make a difference. If there's a financial need, then yeah, obviously, there is going to be a difference. But if there is no self-worth, people tend to look for opportunities. So obviously, we try and find ways in terms of what, we can do. We look at, and we look at digital tools. One of the things that we find with a lot of our clients is that they've got great systems, but they don't necessarily have great tools in terms of communicating numbers, in terms of communicating metrics, real time, etc. And some of the tools that we've got and some of the tools that we use, we've realized the more real time you make it, the better efficiencies kick through. And then if you can throw in a fun element like gamification, contest between one another, contest between teams, one of the things we did in our training environment, when they start training, right, each of them is assigned a Grand Prix car. And at the end of training, based on their progress, right, you get to see who's pole positioned and who gets right to the top. It's things like this that get people excited. It's things like this that make people want to kind of tick. And especially catering to, the newer generation, these things really work because, they enjoy this entire ride. And then, this is a follow-up from the previous slide. You continue focusing on, facilitation, you continue focusing on coaching, you focus on production. The difference is, in the past, it was very manual. It was very somebody looking at a report and telling you what's wrong. Today, you give them access. At the end of the day, you're dealing with adults. You're not dealing with children. You give them access, and they're more than happy to look at it. I keep telling my teams this. I don't think I've ever come across someone that wants to fail. I don't think I've ever come across someone that wants to lose. The only reason that happens is two things. One is they're not equipped or they don't know. And how do we fix one of the problems? One of the problems of getting them to know is by giving them access to data, by giving them access to information. So when you do that, it obviously makes a difference. So this slide more or less gives you a high level in terms of, how automation has helped to a large extent, right? So you've seen 50% reduction in customer contacts, and this is something we've seen, over a period of time, especially since for the last 2 or 3 years, we've actually started investing in automation significantly. There's a 30% lower rate where attrition is concerned. Your HT reduced by about 15%, sales improvement, customer experience improvement, and faster speed to proficiency, right? The problem that we have today is a lot of people want to get into automation, a lot of people want to get into the space, but they don't know what to do. They don't know, how they should invest into this entire thing. And I was reading a research done by the Harvard Business Review some time back, and it says that even companies like Google and even companies like Microsoft have only about 10 to 12% of their farm bots in motion, which means you've got 80+% of their farm bots not being used. It's because, it sounds very fancy, but it's important for us to realize as to what you want to do and then channelize, the effort and the energy into what exactly you want to do. As a part of, I've been a part of the jury for the Stevie Awards, and I'm part of the jury this year as well. And I get a lot of case studies, talking about the different things that people are doing, the different things that they're doing from an automation perspective, etc. And one of the things I've seen, the clients that see the best results are the ones that are continuously investing in it. It's not a one-time thing and you let it be and it's going to take care of things. No, it doesn't work like that. It's a continuous involvement. It's a continuous investment. It's continually going into it and making that contribution. If you don't do that, then artificial intelligence is not going to work. Why? Because it is artificial intelligence. It needs input. Without input, it's not going to move forward. So, something for you to think about. And then I've just got a couple of stats here which I think will keep you interested. I've got about 1 minute and 37 seconds. I think I'm going to be good on the clock. So KLM invests in what is commonly referred to as KLM's BB. This is short for Blue Bot. Function, booking confirmation updates, etc. Blue Bot records 1.7 million messages, covering 500,000 passengers a year. Netflix builds algorithms that recommend viewing material. Every time you go to Netflix or you get an email, it tells you we've added new content which I think you might like. That doesn't happen because someone's doing it. Obviously, there are algorithms, pulling this whole thing together. Netflix is adding 12,000 subscribers in the US each day and over 56,000 subscribers per day in the rest of the world. How does that happen? Just look at that. It's gigantic. 56,000 customers a day is gigantic, right? And it's happening because they've invested and, they're putting the necessary efforts into automation. Starbucks is using its loyalty card and mobile app to collect and analyze customer data. Predictive analysis, choice of beverage at the time of the day. So 11 o'clock in the morning, it knows you're going to go for a coffee. It tells you, hey, you know what? Just a block away, you've got X coffee available, and this is the delight of the day or the special of the day. So what happens? There is a tendency for you to walk that block and get what you need, right? What are they doing? They're increasing their sales. Now, has it cut down jobs? No. In fact, it's increased production. And because it's increased production, there's more opportunities that have been created. Offers push to increase average spend. Starbucks uses 90 million transactions a week to build their food, location, and price strategy. 90 million transactions. Is it possible humanly? I don't think so. As a matter of fact, there's going to be a point in time, especially in a lot of the European countries, right, where they are not going to have enough people because populations are declining. All said and done, populations are declining. We're not going to have enough people to do the jobs required. Everything is going to start struggling. So the one thing that's going to make a difference and the one thing that's going to really help the cause is automation. And if you do it right, I think you'll get great results like some of these companies listed here. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the time. Thank you for having me here, and you have a lovely day.